All right, well, we'll go ahead and open up the April meeting of the Newmarket Energy and Environment Committee. Sadly, we are missing some people for our official introduction of 2 new members, and I also have an unfortunate announcement. I don't know if you got it, but Sean Moran has just resigned because he's moved to Dover. And he is, at my urging, enthusiastically recruiting to get a replacement. So that means, and I don't have the roll call in front of me, but sound off when I call your name. Our town council representative is Joe Lamantina.
Present.
Myself, Ellen Reed. I think we can hold. Yeah, I'm here. Bill Raley is here.
Yes, indeed.
And we have new members, Alex Rentumas.
Present.
And Roberta Branca.
Present.
And as I said, so that leaves 4. Sean has resigned. I think Ruth's term.
We need a formal resignation from Sean, if you can ask him.
He said I told him that, and he said he sent it on today to Wendy.
Okay.
So I presume Wendy got it.
Okay.
But I believe Ruth's term is up, and we don't have a replacement for her.
Correct.
And who does that leave?
Patrick is...
Patrick is gone, and Julie is gone. They're both absent. So that's our full committee.
How many is that altogether?
That's 9.
Okay, good. So we
So
can
the
have 4
5 of
absent
us,
and still have a
Sean's
quorum.
seat is newly open, and then Julie is here. She's a member but can't make it. Patrick's a member but can't make it, and Ruth's position is open as well.
Well, if we get 9, then most likely we'll have a quorum at
Right.
the time.
So currently we have 7 people sitting. I encourage all of you to reach out to people in the town who are interested in the environment and see if they would be willing to make this commitment as we all are making. So last time we had our public hearing on the EAP, and we had like a kind of, I think, brief introduction of Alex and Roberta, but I'd like to open the floor so Alex and Roberta can officially introduce themselves. Alex, you want to go first?
Sure. I don't know what to really say about myself. I was born in Boston, 81, grew up in Manchester for 25 years, and lived across the country for a little bit. I settled in Edgartown, Martha's Vineyard for about 5 years and served on Financial Advisory Committee there from 2011 to 2014. And as of 2016, I moved to Newmarket and been here going on almost 7 years, and always interested in politics starting on the local level, and I'd been here long enough and met enough people, and met Ellen last year and worked with her. Well, initially when I saw the 100% renewable by 2030 commitment, I signed that petition and reached out to her about some other local issues. So here I am. I think it's a perfect committee for me to serve on at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you
I'm very
for
glad
having
to
me.
have you. And Roberta.
Hi, I'm Roberta Branca. This is my second time on the Environmental and Energy Committee. Ellen has recruited me twice successfully for this. I've been in Newmarket since 2005, and sometimes I tell people that I'm the 3rd generation of my family to end up here accidentally, because my oldest brother and his wife lived in Newmarket while they were attending UNH, and then my nephew and his current wife also met at UNH and moved in together in Newmarket. So when I followed my boyfriend up to the seacoast, who's now my husband, I thought, well, everyone else in our family had pretty good luck starting a relationship in Newmarket, so I came here. I was a reporter in the early 90s, and so I covered mainly local governments and town boards, and really kind of fell in love with the New England model of doing town governance. So I was excited to be recruited. by Ellen to do this. There's a long gap between having been a reporter and getting this opportunity, but I made it.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, good to have you.
Do the existing members want to give like a brief introduction for the new members, or everybody feel good, feel like everybody knows each other?
Sure, my name is Bill Raley. I've lived in Newmarket for about 25 years. My background is primarily in mental health and social work with some background in engineering as well. And I've served on, only boards I've served on have been agencies for mental health and social work. I'm very concerned about the environment. I've been concerned about the environment since about 1980 when I became convinced that we were in real trouble. And I mean, just to give you an idea, probably the only activist group I joined, you probably have never heard of. It was called Beyond War, and it was founded by Dr. Helen Caldecott. And I must have done that about 50 years ago, but that gives you some idea of my
You're a
priorities.
radical, huh?
Yeah, I live with my super bonus daughter and my 10-year-old granddaughter and my super bonus daughter's boyfriend, and my dog and my son's dog while he is captaining a sailboat for 3 months. So life is good. I have solar panels and Sunrun, through Sunrun, and that has worked out extremely well for us over the years. I'm a Nazi with my family about keeping the heat down, turning lights off. So,
Typical dad.
I'm one of
Typical
those.
dad, typical dad. Were you raised in a barn? Shut the door. Joe?
I'm Joe Lamartino. I've lived in Newmarket for 44 years. Married to the same lady for 48.
Congratulations.
3 kids, and one of the grandkids. I have 3 grandkids. One of them lives here in Newmarket and is in Newmarket Public Schools.
Nice.
Currently on the Newmarket Town Council, and I'm the Town Council representative to this committee. I've also been elected to the Board of Directors of Community Power, so
Good.
Newmarket will continue to have a board member on Community Power.
Is that replacing Tony?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I was on the Budget Committee for 3 years prior to joining the Town Council. I was the chair of the Budget Committee during the last year, 2021 to 22. That's about it.
Joe is humble. I credit his work greatly with us saving this committee, because
Absolutely.
when he became the council rep to this committee, it was me, Peter, and him only, not a quorum. We were unable to do any official business for months. And Joe was the energy that we needed, and Peter wanted to leave. And I did do a lot of recruiting, but Joe was the energy we needed to keep everything together. So I credit him greatly with that, and also with helping the 100% renewable energy commitment be successful. My name's Ellen Reed. I just gave the brief history. Before that, I had pushed for a little while to get that 100% renewable energy resolution adopted by the committee. Also serve as a state representative. I'm in my 4th term now. I am the New Hampshire state lead for the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators. I've done some other work. Most of my work is on the state level, is not in the environmental sector, but obviously I am a passionate supporter of environmental issues. And I guess I've been in Newmarket since 2009, so that's 14 years, but going on 15. And that's it for me. So because we have new members, it would be appropriate to have elections. We are missing 2 of our members. If I don't want to prevent an election from happening if anybody is interested in running for chair or vice chair or secretary. Joe has been filling in for everybody. I think it's a well-known fact that secretary is like the most work and gets the least glory for the job. And so once again, grateful to Joe for filling in as that. But if anybody would like to run for that position, I know there's only 5 of us. The other option is we can wait until we have a full slate of 9 and do elections then. I'm happy to take any nominations for chair.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to nominate Ellen Reed as the chair, continue as the chair.
Second.
We have a second by Bill.
All those in favor?
Do you accept?
Oh, I accept. It was funny because I was really hoping Emily or God, why am I blanking on her name?
Sarah?
Sarah would fill in, would step up and become chair, and they both took the end of their term and left. You know, like, don't leave. So
Keep this ship
I
going for a while longer.
very much want to keep this committee going, so I humbly accept, but encourage everybody who might possibly be interested in chair to be thinking about it for a later date. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's fine. Okay. I guess I'm still chair for now. Vice chair. Vice chair was being filled by Emily, so we currently do not have a vice chair. Don't be timid. Would anybody have a nomination for vice chair?
Well, I think Emily did a great job.
Emily did a great job. Emily's
But-
no longer
but
with
now
us.
she's gone, so yeah.
Yeah.
And what about Sarah, did you say?
Also gone. They're both of their terms ended.
Oh, I see, okay.
Did
I
they
missed
resign
that
from
part
the
about
board
Sarah.
or just
No,
from the
no, their
position?
terms were ended as of March, and
Mhm.
so we
Okay.
all got, everybody whose term ended in 2023, including myself, got a letter saying, do you want to be considered to be reappointed? I was kind of hoping that I could tap out, and then Emily and Sarah could continue the good work, but they both said, oh, no, we have to do other things. So I'm kind of left in the position of continuing, but that's fine. Back to vice chair.
Well, I'd like to, where Roberta has been on the board before.
That's true.
Really, the vice chair really, it's just to run the meeting if Ellen's not here.
That's basically it.
I accept with the proviso that next month I can't be here because I'm working a temporary job.
That's fine. Well,
Yeah,
my
Wednesday
next
night.
order of business, I'm actually going to insert something on the agenda, I apologize,
No,
and that is discussing what day, since we have new membership, what day might be in everybody's, best convenience schedule.
Okay,
So anyway, I second that if you're accepting
right.
that nomination.
Yeah.
All
Do
right.
you accept?
yes.
All
I
those
thought
in-
I heard that as a yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Roberta Branca is now the vice chair. And secretary. Would anybody like to?
If you don't
step
mind,
up?
I'd like to
It has
continue
to be
doing
Joe.
that.
I would love to
second.
nominate Joe to continue the job of secretary. I nominate Joe.
I second.
All right,
So
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, yay. So we have officers. And I would like to discuss real quick if Wednesday is the best night for everyone, or is there a better night? We just need to make sure we're not in conflict with when either this room or the room downstairs would be used.
Wednesday is really the only night for me, except for, wait a minute,
And we can also move the week of the month as well.
Wednesday and Friday are the only possibilities for me.
Wednesday and Friday. Fridays are good for me as well.
I think I work both nights, but it's only for 1 month, so,
Oh,
Okay.
I mean, it's
So it's
not a
only
big
next
deal.
month.
Yeah, exactly.
Friday
it-
nights are usually kind of bad for meetings.
Wednesday or Friday?
It's a Friday nights are usually bad.
Bad
isn't it?
for meetings. Well, people
I just-
like to go out.
Yeah,
Sure.
we're doing
Right.
a long weekend trip.
I don't want to, you don't want to interfere with anybody's partying that one.
So, let's, if you guys think this is good, it sounds like there's no, positive change that can be made at this point. Let's just keep it Wednesday for now, and then hopefully next month we'll have a full slate of 9 people, and we can revisit,
See,
Can I just add,
of course.
so if we do, once we do have like 9 people, this is kind of like crowded for 9 people, this room up here.
Oh, true.
And so we should probably meet downstairs. But my understanding is next month, for some reason or other, the inclusion, they meet on the 4th Wednesday of the month. They're meeting downstairs. But they meet an hour before us, so
Okay.
what we could do next month, if we continue with Wednesday, the 4th Wednesday of the month, next month we play it by ear. If they are in fact going to be downstairs and they're running over, we can come up here and
But next month has 5 Wednesdays. We could meet on the fifth Wednesday.
Yeah, we could switch it to the last Wednesday of every month, and then there's none of that ambiguity.
Any other thoughts? Or we can like maybe set it for 7:30 instead so that we make sure we're clear of the inclusion people.
The fourth Wednesday of the month works good for me.
Okay.
The first and third Wednesdays is town council. Second Wednesday, I have a condo association, I'm on that.
Is there anything scheduled for fifth Wednesdays?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
no, but the fifth Wednesday, you don't always have a fifth Wednesday.
No, I didn't mean in general. I meant just
Oh.
for next month since you said inclusion was
We
meeting.
can,
It's the 31st.
May 31st, is that a holiday?
So Memorial
Memorial
Day is, recognized on the Monday, the 29th. But I do think.
Right now, there is nothing scheduled for May 31st on the town calendar.
So do we want to keep it just for next month? Do we want to keep it on the 24th and just try to avoid the inclusion group, or do we want to just meet on the fifth Wednesday?
I have no problem with the 31st.
31st?
31st is fine with me.
All right, all
that-
those for 31st.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I guess 31st it
And
is.
just as an aside, I mean, it'd be easier for me to keep track of if we just said the last Wednesday of every month, which is usually the fourth Wednesday of every month, but when it's not, then I have to remember that.
Does that make sense, Joe, or would that run us amok of something potentially?
I think that might be problematic.
Oh, I mean, it makes logical sense to me, but I just don't know if the town has anything on fifth Wednesdays or last Wednesdays or whatever.
There won't be many.
It shouldn't be because
Last
we're the
Wednesday
last.
won't be the fifth very often.
No, when we're
It'll
almost
most of
always the
time
last
be
Wednesday.
The fourth Wednesday.
Yeah.
Inclusion people looks like they only meet like every 3 or 4 months.
Oh,
Actually, they've got nothing on them.
okay. So, I mean, you don't feel comfortable with changing it to last Wednesday?
No, we can do that.
All right.
Looking at, all the way through October, there's, I think, May's looks like, is it the only one that has,
August.
oh no,
Easier
May and
on my old
November.
memory.
Always last
August has a
Wednesday.
August has one too?
August 30th. November.
So, for next month, we are gonna be May 31st?
Yes. And any other month so I guess the next one being August, that has 5 Wednesdays, will be on the last Wednesday.
Wendy's gonna love this.
I know, it's not as easy. I'm just writing down the notes. I know that you're taking notes, Joe.
And November and January also have 5.
Okay. So like 4 a year or so. All right, the next order of business is acceptance of minutes, which I don't think we can actually pass because our last
5
minutes,
people, yeah.
2 people weren't here for the last, so that leaves only 3 of us.
I was told you can, if you believe that the minutes are accurate, you can
Oh.
vote with, not abstain.
All right, does anybody want to move to accept the minutes?
Yeah, sure.
All right, and second?
I'll second.
All right, all those that are accepting.
Now, are we doing all 3? The 2 public hearings and the last meeting, or?
I was doing each
Yeah.
one individually, but I mean, we could.
Oh, I think it's gonna be the same for all of them, so
Yeah,
that's.
all right.
Alright,
Let me amend, Bill, would you like to amend your motion to include the minutes for the regular meeting of March 22nd as well as the minutes? Did we have official minutes for those?
Yeah.
Oh, you took them. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sure, yes.
For those public hearings
Yes.
on March 22nd and April 12th.
Yep.
And Joe seconds. And all those in favor of adopting all 3 sets of minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, they are all adopted. All right, now we get into the meat. Oh, sorry, I didn't do public forum yet.
Speak
Public
up.
forum, speak now or forever hold your peace. If somebody comes in, I'll obviously recognize them. So now we get into the community power EAP, the electric aggregation plan, has gone through both of its hearings. Joe, would you like to kind of give went through both of its hearings, a little update?
Okay, so yeah, we had the 2 public hearings, and I have submitted a resolution to the town to approve the electric aggregation plan. The first reading should be this next Wednesday, and then the second reading and the final approval should be the third Wednesday of May. So we should have that done. And then the next step is just working on all the contracts, so we're getting that next step. Well, actually, after the town council approves the resolution, the electric aggregation plan, it has to go to Henry. Henry passes it to the Public Utilities Commission. They have to approve it.
Right.
And once that's approved, then we can move on with the next step, which is actually getting all the contracts and everything to the town.
Right.
And, I kind of envision doing that like in the fall, late fall, September, October timeframe. Let the lawyers and Steve and everybody take a look at that, let the town council discuss. We may have to have another meeting with the town council to go over any questions that they might have. If we can get that town council to approve the contracts in joining community power, that would be good to do that like February, March timeframe, so that we in the spring we roll into community power.
We'll be able to debut Newmarket Community Power to customers this time next year. That would be fantastic. Does anybody have any questions about the timeline that Joe laid out?
No, but just as an aside, before I forget, that one public hearing that I attended, and there was one guy there, very enthusiastic and articulate young man with a family background of lots of activism and so forth.
We should recruit.
Anybody get
Ben-
his name? He might be
Yeah.
a good person to
He
reach out to.
emailed, I think.
Ben Buckley
Yeah.
is his name, but he's
That's
already on. I asked him if he wanted to do anything, and he's on the Lamprey River Committee. He's got some other stuff that he's doing.
I just remembered some supporters of mine in town that are very environmentally, I can't believe I haven't thought of them before. I will reach out to them, and if both of them can serve, then we would have our needs met.
What's the process of electing new people to this board now?
So they're appointed by the council, so all you really have to do is fill out that same form that you did, submit it to the council, or Wendy, and Wendy would submit it to the council, and they would vote on it whenever their
Alan,
next meeting is.
What about Joan DiOrio?
I asked her
Yeah.
a while back, and she said she was too busy.
Okay,
You can ask her.
all right.
I have a couple of names in mind, but I'll talk with them first.
Okay, so,
So just to be clear, there's
Two.
with Sean gone, there's 2 open positions.
correct.
And-
And he did post on what the hell's going on in Newmarket, that people need to, if anybody's interested in serving. And gave both Wendy's and my contact info. So, hopefully we'll have all the seats filled by May 31st. Okay, so the point at which going back to the EAP, the point at which Newmarket becomes obligated is when those contracts are finally signed.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that we're thinking of like fall this year.
That we would get it to the town council and Steve. I'm sure they'll want to
It'll take a few
review it
months.
and whatever.
Yeah, all right. All right, so now, because we passed this town resolution committing us to 100% renewable energy by 2030, and it says in the resolution that we're going to form a comprehensive plan. We also want to, the master plan's being revisited. It'd really be great to have Patrick here right now. The master plan for the whole town is being revisited currently, and did he say it'd take like a year or 2 to get that?
Yeah.
But we would love, because it doesn't have any, Joe found through his research, it doesn't really have much of any reference to our energy plan. And we definitely need an energy plan. Now, I think we'll come up with a more comprehensive plan, but at least for what goes into the master plan, based on the master plan's language, is at least a generalized, like this is what we want to do with energy in this town.
Right.
And so this committee, now that we've kind of gotten through our EAP commitment, this committee is kind of tasked with making a recommendation to the planning board for what we would like to see in the master plan for,
Right.
for energy. We had kind of a starting point for that, but I wish we had thought ahead of time to do it technologically on the screen. Is that something we can do, Joe?
Um,
Bring it on the
I
screen?
don't think we can do it here. We can do it downstairs.
Downstairs, okay.
Again, maybe what I would suggest is, I'll send out the link to everybody.
Okay.
Everybody kind of like take a look through it and, get an idea what's in there. And we've already gone through the first, I don't know, up through section 3 of it, of the document, and we've done that and approved it. So I'll send a note about, what we've already looked at, what we've already approved, and what we need to do.
The document being isn't that what Clean Energy New Hampshire gave us? Because there's no current, there's really very little language in the current master plan about energy. So
That's correct.
our starting point, if I remember correctly, and this was last year, we solicited Clean Energy New Hampshire to give us kind of a template for a master plan for energy, right? Is that what?
Well, what we did, we ripped off Lebanon and
Oh, yeah.
Rye. We
Yeah,
ripped
yeah.
off stuff from them, and we gave it to, I forget what his name was, the clean energy guy.
Yeah,
there.
Josh was the
John.
one, yeah, that was helping us, but he's gone, and
Right.
he got replaced. I don't remember the person's name that replaced him. So we could ask, if we want to do this for May, ask Clean Energy to revisit with us and help us with that process.
I would suggest that, we finish it off,
Mm-hmm.
what we have out there, and, and then bring in, clean energy again, and say, okay, does this look okay for a master plan?
And I know that I had put notes in that plan myself, but that, we have different membership now, so sending that link out would be helpful. And if both Roberta and Alex, and obviously everybody else, but since you guys haven't had a chance to look over it and put in notes.
Wasn't the
The-
link in
Yes,
your
it was,
last
yeah.
email,
Mhm.
Joe? Yeah, I did look it over before I came in this evening. I mean, I'm talking, I spent 1 hour reading the entire thing, so
Oh, wow.
by no means up to speed yet, but
That's probably more than what most people have put in. So, does anybody want to talk about what you would like to see in a master plan, energy plan? I mean, I think obviously it needs to include the idea of 100% renewable energy by 2030. And community power is a big piece of that, because you saw from the EAP hearings that that's a potential even now. And it's not guaranteed to stay, but right now, Henry showed that you could have 100% renewable energy plan for less than what
You're currently paying.
that Eversource is charging, right?
0.9 cent cheaper per kilowatt.
Yeah, for 100% renewable. And so, of course, I feel very vindicated because I've been pushing this for a while, and people are like, no, we'll never get there by 2030. And literally, we are there. We're capable of doing that. So I think clean energy is a big piece of that, but some of the things that we talked about in this committee about other pieces of what an energy plan might look like included how do we incentivize especially low-income people, especially renters, to how do we help them get solar panels. Those solar panels could be hooked into our system, so that one of the things Patrick said is we could literally buy those panels as a town for them, and they pay us back through their rate, a fixed rate. But it's essentially part of our Newmarket community power grid. Efficiency measures, what efficiency measures do we want to undertake? Public transportation is under attack, obviously. I don't want to say under attack, sounds really bad, but we're losing our Wildcat service. So how do we want to address transportation in the town? Part of that is also charging stations that we've discussed before. And also, we have been talking over the months about visiting or revisiting, and we just haven't done it yet, how recycling and compost are handled in town, and wanting to do public service campaigns around that. So there's all these pieces can be part of maybe not so much the recycling thing, but of a comprehensive energy plan. So I'm, while we're not looking at the document right now, if anybody feels like, we definitely need to include X, I'm happy to.
Can we talk a little bit about transportation? I think one of the big holes, I think, in the master plan and then also to our detailed plan is public transportation. And so we had a couple of notes that went back and forth between you and me, and you had some really good ideas and, also some, hey, this is the, life. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then maybe, I don't know, something will come out of that we can then put into here
Sure.
related to transportation.
Well, I have a kind of unique perspective because I've worked for both, as a driver for both Wildcat and Coast. And both of those companies in the past have serviced, and Coast does technically still service. I don't know what the agreement between Newmarket and either of those companies were in the past. I do know that you can get service if a town contracts it with them. I don't know what that price is because I've never been on that end of the business end of those companies. I'm just a lowly driver. So I don't know if it's cheaper to go through them or the potential of even starting up our own like on-call public transit system where low income, I'll just say transportationally challenged people, whether they're elderly and can't drive or they're low income or whatever it is, you can have 15 passenger vans or smaller without the need to hire anyone who has a CDL, because obviously once you hire someone with a CDL, it's a much, you're paying a lot more for labor. There is, actually, and the woman who runs it is based in Newmarket, so she would be an excellent source to draw on, but a nonprofit transportation system that's basically run by volunteers who drive their personal cars to help people. But if Newmarket was willing to put in some kinds of funds, we could get, I might be a little pie in the sky, but we could get like electric, 15 passenger vans that you don't need a CDL for, and then just have, regular, good drivers drive those and pick people up, take them to Market Basket, take them to the doctor, take them to work. I don't think that would be that much money, but we'd have to sit down and talk about that.
How do we go about doing that? Like, I kind of agree that, we're not gonna pay Coast or whatever to
Right.
run a big bus.
Well, they have a
pick
lot
up
of
2
overhead,
people.
right?
Right.
Because they have physical grounds, they have, so I would bring in Carol Gullah, who runs her nonprofit, and ask her, and we could even bring in people from Wildcat and Coast to talk just about transportation issues, not so much, recruiting them. But essentially, you need vehicles. You'll probably need insurance for the driver, not health insurance, I mean just insurance to cover them. Drivers, the big cost is usually labor. And then we need to sit down and figure out, and I don't think that this would be the role of the EE, but maybe we could be, I don't know, maybe we could put forward some idea. Essentially, you like to go into a community and do studies and charrettes and things like that to find out what the actual need is. Who needs the transportation? Where do they need to go? When do they need to do that? Coast did a very massive plan when they were overhauling their routes that involved a lot of community discussions around that, and then you find out what you need to provide. You could provide routes where people know that, every day at 8 o'clock this is going to go to Market Basket, or you can provide, if you don't have that much demand, you can provide on-call service, or you can provide a mixture.
Again, I'm kind of like at a loss. It's a big hole for transportation.
Mm-hmm. I very
How do
much
we
would
do
like
it?
to see better it was one
How do
of
we
the
do it?
biggest problems I had when I moved here, because I wanted to get to UNH, and I remember I actually was hit by a car. I mean, my person wasn't, but I was carrying a backpack, and I live a mile south of the Irving, right? So I had to walk on 108 where there's really just an embankment and no sidewalk or anything. So as I was going around this tight, there's like 8 inches of room, a car hit my backpack, spun me around, I landed on the embankment.
I had to walk that at 10 o'clock at night one time.
Mm-hmm.
My car broke down in Burlington, Massachusetts. I took a bus from Boston to Newburyport, Wildcat to the mall, or something to the mall, to Fox Run Mall, and then a Wildcat to the center of Newmarket. But then I had to walk the center of Newmarket to back to my apartment. She and I lived in the same complex, so.
So Wildcats out of Durham
Yes.
Yeah,
And
can you
Yeah,
get to
it's run
Portsmouth
by UNH.
from Durham?
if you get to Durham, you can get to Portsmouth, yes. If you get to
Right.
Dover, you can get to Portsmouth. You just need
But
to
you
be able
can't
to
get
get to
from
Durham, or
Right.
the other way, most people are going to Stratham for Market Basket and stuff, so. It used to be that Coast, I think when Coast and Wildcat were the same thing, offered a big giant route that came out of Dover, Durham, through Newmarket, Stratham, Exeter, and then to Portsmouth, just one giant big loop. But anyway, getting back to this, I think the next step would be to bring in experts on, because my expertise is in driving, and I have some adjacent knowledge of routes and things, but we would have to bring in experts to help us form a transportation plan and then see if that's cost effective.
Can we do that, bring somebody in, kind of like float ideas and
Yeah.
say, what's doable, what's not?
Yeah, let's do that.
And if,
I will reach out to people. I mean, I know a lot of people in the transportation field, so I'll reach.
so what about this Carol?
I mean, unless you, well, I know her. Does anybody else know Carol Gola? I'll reach out to her. And then also like my old boss, Mark Heisen at Wildcat. Because, I mean, they're ending their service, so there's no reason that they wouldn't share their information with us.
In my mind, I was thinking if we had either like an on-demand or ran a regular schedule from here to Durham, to
Right.
connect them with a Wildcat Transit and,
Yeah.
and maybe, go to Durham and maybe to Market Basket.
Yep, that
Yeah.
sounds like a very reasonable, and I don't think that expensive of an undertaking. I mean, the biggest upfront cost obviously would be the vehicle. But you could conceivably do it in a smaller vehicle, like a regular van. What was the other thing? The other piece of transportation issues, and this might be more, I don't know, because the problem is there's really, once you get outside of Newmarket, either direction on 108, it's not really hospitable for walking, bicycles, or anything. But within Newmarket, you might consider improving. I know that there's been in years past, like, sidewalks and things to improve walkability, but like a bicycle rent system or, public bike, like a lot of cities have, that can be basically self-funded if necessary. So that's a possibility as well. Okay.
So stuff like that should be, I think is good for the master plan. Say, these are
Yes.
our recommendations. We need to work on or
Transportation.
develop transportation, develop bicycle paths, whatever.
I mean, okay, so let's do big buckets, right? Like, so there's energy procurement. That's mostly going to be EAP. Or the, Newmarket
On that,
Community.
I have to just mention to you again that it is a shame that people who will join the cooperative cannot have solar panels and vice versa.
Why?
Mm,
I'm under the understanding that right now there's a hiccup, but that the plan within, I think, a year is to make sure that there's net metering.
That's not what he said at the public hearing. He kind of gave it seemed to indicate that the stumbling block is very big.
No,
I know
well,
it's only-
he clarified or, again, spoke at
Oh,
the
yeah,
second
yeah.
public hearing, said, they're working on it, but the main gist of the issue
Oh,
is.
they are working on it?
Yes.
Okay.
The main gist of the issue is Eversource really doesn't have the ability to tell them what the net meter charge is.
I got the feeling it was Eversource just not telling, like, not that they didn't have the ability, but that Eversource
They're
was
not
just
willing to
not
do
Well,
it.
they must have the ability
cooperating.
because they tell me. I have solar panels, and they
Right.
tell me what it
That-
is, so they must be able to give it out.
From then-
They claim they can't share it.
From my understanding of
Maybe
what
it's
Henry
not.
was saying was that people with solar wouldn't be able to be credited for what they give back to the grid because they
No.
don't have accurate
Because
know.
we don't
They
have
can
the
fit-
accurate information from Eversource.
Oh,
But
yeah,
they
yeah.
could still sign up to receive electric from the
But
co-op.
then
They
you
just
don't-
wouldn't,
But, I mean, I'm not gonna do that because it costs me a lot of money to do that, because I will not be getting any credit.
right, which you're being credited from Eversource right now. That's your
Yes,
argument. Yeah,
so
you'd
it'd
be losing
wonderful
money
if
and,
I could get credit,
yeah.
you know, from,
I think it's, yeah, it seems like it's worked on. I'm committed to do anything, you know,
good,
need be
because
to
it does seem like
to
it-
get
it's
Eversource to be
obstacle that-
motivated.
Yeah, because, I mean, you know, Eversource has the information. There should be some way, some kind of an agreement with the cooperative to straighten that out. I'll be very pleased when that happens.
But my understanding is Eversource is legally mandated to provide us that information, and like they have done in the past when Peter was chair, they have just dragged their feet on doing that because they don't want the competition.
Right.
Well, it's
So-
one thing to get the information, it's another thing to have a system whereby another company will give the credits. In other words, if I'm signed up with a cooperative, I want to have the same arrangement with them that I have with Eversource. That is, I accumulate credits, and then in the winter I get to
course.
use them.
Of course.
That's the only thing that is going to be valuable for those of us who want both cooperative and solar panels.
And I believe isn't that the goal of the power?
Henry's made it clear the
Yeah.
entire time that they want
Absolutely.
not just to do net metering, but to do net metering specifically at a competitive enough rate to outcompete. Because the problem with having cheaper electricity is that the credit that you get when you produce electricity is also less, right?
Oh.
And so my understanding from what Henry has said is that we, despite having lower energy rates, we might even offer a more competitive buyback amount.
Right.
I don't know exactly how he's got that figured out, but that's kind of what I took from what he said.
Well, Eversource does not give a kilowatt hour for a kilowatt hour.
Right,
They give less.
right.
So I give them a kilowatt hour, they give me back something, a credit for less than a
Right.
kilowatt hour.
But
So, yeah, it should be doable.
it's still beneficial for anyone to have solar panels because you're still reducing your own energy costs.
Well, of course it is.
But
why I have solar
obviously,
panels.
anyone who puts in that kind of investment wants to get the most out of that investment, which includes the net metering piece of it.
Oh, yeah, that's a big part of it.
But I have every faith that Community Power is going to get Eversource to live up to their legal requirement. Because my understanding is the reason we don't have that ability is because they control the lines, right? So we don't know how
Well, I
much.
guess my question, is there anything that we can do to accelerate that process?
I would think so. We should focus on that plan to compel them.
Fantastic, good.
I mean, the Eversource lobbyist that talks to the state reps has been very responsive in years past, so it's worth calling her.
Great.
I don't know that my little phone call is enough to get them to do this big thing, but it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I'd be willing to make phone calls and write letters.
I don't even understand why it is a big thing for them. It must be money involved.
Strategic.
somehow. I just
They're
don't get it.
for this to present the situation you're in. I mean, from a strategic
They don't
standpoint.
want to lose customers, so if they are the only people providing the net metering to solar customers,
Then
then,
they get to keep all the solar.
They're gonna lose some customers,
Yeah.
that's right.
right, so.
The more people that have converted to solar, that's the customer base that they're going to lose probably overnight. They know it because
Right.
the co-op outdoes them in every possible way, it seems.
And they know
It's-
that. go ahead.
There's two things. One is, yes, they do lose some revenue, okay? They're only giving you a certain credit, less than a kilowatt hour,
They
right?
do. It's-
So
I did not
they're
get the percentages.
they're charging a kilowatt hour on, but only giving you a piece of that.
That's
So they're
right.
losing that revenue, but
I'm
also too,
giving
what
them
they've
more
said,
than they're giving me.
right, but also too, what they've said is that their computer systems aren't capable of doing that at this moment, and they would incur a cost to change their computer systems, and, I don't know how significant that is. It doesn't,
I've heard that.
Do we
I'm
need to
working
get
computers
do
for
we need a
years.
forensic
It's
person
funny
to consult?
Because
at
I
a meeting?
feel like if I don't have the technology, or if I have to incur a cost to comply with law, then that's always on me, right? Like if I have to pay for my driver's license, or I have to pay a, speeding ticket, like, I still have to pay, I have to incur that cost to be
That-
compliant with law, so.
That's
This
what they
argument
said.
is reminiscent of, several years ago, somebody said, well, why don't we, lawnmowers and tractors, lawn tractors emit all kinds of, why don't we put catalytic converters on them? And immediately Briggs and Stratton said, oh no, we can't do that, we'd have to retool, we have to do all of this, would jack up the price tremendously, absolutely undoable. And on the same day, Honda said, no problem, we're gonna have
Yeah.
to charge an extra 50 cents a lawnmower, so.
Because when we propose new regulations, American companies hire lawyers and Japanese companies hire engineers.
That's right.
So we've got
So
a long
this is
history to draw on
reminiscent of
for
that.
motives.
Yeah.
Very good.
I mean, so Eversource is a private company, but they deal in a public utility, so,
Right.
we should be able to compel them
Exactly. Well,
pretty
good. I'm glad
easily
you
if
wanna
we
Yeah.
find the right channels.
I mean, I
Yeah.
would like to know just really what the hell's going on here.
Yeah.
So bringing us back, and that argument is something that like I battle with every single day on the legislative front is,
Of course.
you know,
I
we
have
don't,
enough-
we don't want to do the work. We don't want to, pay the
course.
cost of business,
Course.
so, and to any extent that, especially a for-profit company can externalize their costs, they're going to, so you
Well,
really
sure.
have to. So anyway, getting us back to the master plan, right now I have 3 buckets. This kind of mimics what I have written in the notes from months ago that I can't quite recall. There's probably more there. But I have energy procurement, so EAP is a lot, or rather Newmarket Community Power. We're gonna have to stop saying EAP and switch it to NCP. Newmarket Community Power will be a lot of that, including net metering, but we also talked about, part of that could also be, and I think I don't know, we would have to have somebody come and look, but like the idea of retrofitting our dam or having a solar field, we could either have a solar field or we can do a decentralized solar field with many people's solar panels, right? And help, especially low-income people get solar panels. So there is purchasing power through Newmarket Community Power through the coalition, but there's also us generating our own power as an option, and community power is there to help us do that. So those are options. Efficiency measures, so I'm thinking in broad strokes, so if we say energy procurement is in the master plan, obviously 100% electricity, renewable electricity by 2030, but we can talk about increasing what's that?
I feel like I read those changes in the document that Joe linked to in his email. They're in there. There's not a lot of detail yet, but they're brought up in there.
Yes.
And I didn't know whether the changes that are already there have been voted on or if we need to.
No.
No, that's,
Okay.
No, so I'm talking about, so right now I have 3 buckets. I think I have more in the notes at the very end of the whole thing.
Okay.
Basically an outline. But my 3 buckets are energy procurement, efficiency, and transportation.
Right.
There's probably more buckets I'm not remembering right now, but you guys, this is what I'm saying. I'm putting this out here for you all to give me feedback. So under energy procurement, 100% renewable electricity by 2030, through Newmarket Community Power. Increasing access for low income and renters to solar panels.
Right.
And then possibly our own generation, power generation, Newmarket power generation, which would be part of Newmarket Community Power, to be very clear. Under efficiency, what? Maximizing access to efficient technologies. So I'm just thinking of broad statements of goals that we want to see in the next 10 years.
Yeah. They're already in the document.
So so the thing that is in the document is straight out of Lebanon or wherever.
Oh, that's true. Because there are colored things that I assumed were our own changes, but they're not.
And so that can
They're,
include
different color
lighting,
messages.
can include cooking. A lot of people don't have efficient cooking methods. It could include heat. And we do need to address fuels too, because fuels is part of the 100% renewable commitment, because we talk a lot about, oh my God, 2030, electric has to be 100% renewable by 2030, but that same resolution says fuels for heat and transport have to be 100% by 2050.
Right.
So We never talk about that because that's out in the future.
Yeah, biodiesel and straight vegetable oil solutions, which I looked into over the past 15 years.
Right.
Dabbled in.
So I actually came up to New Hampshire to get my master's degree because my undergrad is in molecular biology, and I was super stoked about algal biodiesel. And this was UNH was one of two colleges that had someone like really deep dive working on algal biodiesel. And I got up here, and I got my degree, but the professor who was doing all the algae stuff went on sabbatical when I came up here.
Oh.
So I wasn't able to do the algae so much. And then transportation, like a public transit system, it could be route, it could be on call. I think we need to focus obviously on transportation challenge. And then we can talk about walkability and cyclability.
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 That way it doesn't exclude adult tricycles.
And unicycles.
Well, and so we were just talking about this, and this is something that I did in the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators. We talked a lot about electric bikes, but where was I? Oh my God, where? Housing. It was on the Housing Committee. We were talking about how important transportation is to the housing market, and Nashua, I think we were talking about Nashua, and how they have, basically there's 3 tiers. There's the sidewalk, which is for pedestrians. Then they basically have a transit lane, so that's for their bus system, but also, it was Manchester, bus system, but also anything else that wasn't a car that had to be in the road or a pedestrian could be in the bus lane. So that's scooters, electric bikes, bicycles, so it's basically a combined like alternative transit lane. And then there's a protective barrier there, usually like small flaps that they're a visual barrier and they make a sound if you start to run over them, but they're not damaging to your car. And there's usually like it's painted a different color, that lane. And then there's the road. So that's, I don't know that we have that much road issues that we'd go full on like that, like a big city, but it's something we can look into, walkability and cyclability.
And you want to see, the
Yeah.
figures, you want to find out how many cyclists and so forth are actually using that lane. Those are great ideas, but you also have to find out if they're
Or how many
used.
people would use bicycles, like if we had like a blue bike or whatever system where
Right.
people can pick up a bike, ride it,
Yeah.
and drop it off.
Yeah, those are all, that's good questions.
Like
And
on either end of town
people
or
have
something.
tried it enough to have some answers to that, I think.
Yeah.
On the efficiency, back to the energy efficiency, and I think you spoke about maybe insulation.
I
But
just said it.
There are tons of programs.
Yeah.
Even John Kuiper was telling me a few weeks ago that he had professional insulators that have all this like public money, federal money that they do the proper survey and find all the cold spots, and it does wonders. I mean, that's the
Yes.
And there's so many
from
old buildings.
doing all the structures here need all sorts of work and patching up like that.
New
But also,
windows alone for old houses would make a huge difference. If
Yeah.
there's some way of supporting that.
and I live over at the One Church building. Now that's on, so all apartments rent, it's all heated by oil. That's included in our rent, but we pay for our hot water, which are electric tanks. So that insulation would, help
Defray the cost.
electricity consumption that way to some degree.
Yeah,
So it's,
insulation is a good one, right, so.
oh, absolutely. So basically everything I just said, I know that I put notes to that effect and probably more notes at the end of the document that Joe shared, but obviously that document itself is something that comes out of other towns' master plan regarding energy. So if you guys can just, like, that's the only homework I have, I'll call these other people about transportation and Eversource as well. But if you guys can go over that. Is there anything else, like, so I had the 3 buckets, transportation, efficiency, energy procurement. Is there anything else that you can think of that we really need to focus on for the master plan?
I don't want to get into zoning regulations, because I think that's a whole other thing, but there is something that was recently passed that they're allowed to add an additional 100 square feet onto a project if they put some solar panels in.
Oh, incentives, yeah.
That's clever.
So it encourages them to, builders to put solar in.
Well, that's, so that's, goes under solar panel incentive, which is under the energy procurement. And so the two kind of ideas that we had, I had put forward an idea for a tax credit. So right now, the only credit you get on your property tax if you put on solar panels is that they don't tax you on the additional value of your home.
Right.
So if you've increased your value of your home by 20,000, your assessment stays the same. But that isn't really a credit, it's just like getting out of the penalty. It's not really like an incentive in and of itself. So my thought was, whatever the cost you put in for the solar panels to a certain limit, that you could get that back in property tax credit, bless you, in property tax credit, but only a certain amount every year, so you're not just taking like a whole bunch of credit. So like maybe you only get 2,000 a year, and you could take it up to 5 years or something like that. Then Patrick said, and I was very intrigued by his idea, that we do it kind of the other way around, where the town literally, maybe this is like an income tested thing where only lower income people would qualify, but or also multifamily, so landlords would be able to get help putting solar panels on, or get maybe an incentive for putting solar panels on. So we basically buy it for them, and they pay us back through their rate,
Oh,
right? So
Yeah.
basically, we become the financiers of the solar panels. And then after that, I mean, that basically, it's on their building, but because it's all net metering, it's part of our Newmarket community power energy generation. We would be generating our energy here, as if we built a solar field.
This is a devil's advocate comment to see if you've done your homework on this yet.
Probably not. It was
You
Patrick's
want
idea, it's
me-
his fault.
When you say we, you mean me, the taxpayer, subsidizing my former landlord who, never invested in the property without a,
So that was the landlord idea, but then the first idea is like literally just making it for low-income homeowners,
okay,
right?
yeah.
The landlord idea, you might just do like a different incentive altogether.
I see.
But the idea is, we could, as Newmarket, build a field and buy all of our own, build all of our own solar panels.
Okay.
Or we could use people's rooftops as that field.
Oh,
And basically, we're still buying the solar panels, and we're still getting the rate back, but the incentive is that we don't have to have a field, we're using other people's roofs, and then after they pay us off for their solar panels, the value of that home is permanently increased, right?
Right.
Like, there will always be solar panels on
Right.
the house.
Also, if the structure that a landlord owns has these solar panels, it'd be a good incentive for them to offer then their tenants basically free electricity. Would it shake up that way? I don't know.
Well, it would be a very attractive property to move into because your electric costs would be so low.
Right.
It would you basically getting mostly free energy, and then the net metered energy back has to be credited back, but after it's paid for. Anyway, if there's anything else to add to the master, just like thoughts, let's go ahead and do it. If not, the last item is just new business, if anybody had anything.
So do we want to add like a zoning section, or?
So, I mean, I think that zoning idea goes into the incentives, for me, under energy procurement. Because you're talking about people building solar panel, or putting on solar panels, so it's energy procurement. But it is an interesting thought, because zoning, so I'm on the housing committee in the House, and the special housing committee, and there's just so much overlap and intersectionality between transportation and energy and housing, and trying to make sure people get affordable housing. And I just need to plug our town planner, Bart McDonough, who's like been very helpful with me on my housing bills, and he came and actually testified to the housing committee this past week, Monday he did. So there might be more there. Density is, like, increasing density is a big deal. First of all, increasing density makes transportation easier. And I'm just going to speak to the energy aspect of
I'm sorry,
increasing.
you're talking about population density?
Yeah, so like, your downtown
Yes.
areas, having
I
5-acre
understand.
lot
That's not an
minimums,
issue.
it
I
can be
know,
pretty
yep.
problematic. From a transportation standpoint, increased density makes things much more walkable, much more accessible, rather than your 5-acre minimums. The biggest pushback, of course, are property owners who, this is their investment, most people's houses, most people's biggest investment, and they are worried about, losing rural character, and there's all kinds of ways around that. There's all kinds of ways to preserve rural character and still increase density. But it helps from a transportation standpoint. It also helps from utilities standpoint, because you're not branching out your utilities and lines, and you lose energy and efficiency the more lines you have to go down. If everything is really concentrated, your utilities are more efficient, and you don't have to invest so much on these long lines. But so those are two energy aspects to zoning. So it's a fair, from a city planning standpoint, it's a fair thing to consider for the master plan. I'm sure that they're already considering issues of density in the master plan, so it makes sense to insert the energy aspect
Throw in
of.
some energy aspect.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on.
No, I prefer it because I feel bad about always being the one talking.
Yeah, I would vote yes on throwing in some energy considerations into the planning and zoning section, or throwing planning and zoning considerations into
I'd
our
say
energy section.
Put it all in there now, so we can talk about it, look at it, and
Yeah.
Yep.
if we
We can
decide,
always weed it out.
comes out, then it comes out, but.
It's better to start with too much
Right.
and pare down.
Exactly. That's how I write things, like speeches
Oh, yeah.
and stuff. It's just like, I had an 8-minute speech, I had to pare it down to 3 minutes. Get
Yeah.
everything out. Electric efficiency. All right. Okay. Anything else before we move on just to the last new business?
Well, one last consideration maybe for master plan for me on environmental, clean soil and water. And two examples that I've seen since living here just a couple months ago, the heating oil spill into the river here. Were you all aware of that?
Yeah.
No,
I wasn't aware of that. I'm aware of Epping, which is upstream from us, and their sewage dump into the
no,
Lamprey.
What happened here?
Yeah, this property, I'm pretty sure you know of it, Joe?
Yeah, right across the street, or somebody's oil tank, on Birch Drive, I guess, their oil tank broke and spilled oil into the lake.
Y'all, right here in the main part of after the dam and
Yeah.
down to the landing, you could
Yeah.
smell it for about a week. They had the floaters
Yep.
partitioning, doing all
Yeah.
that mitigation. So my question there is how do we currently deal with things like that, and how do we prevent them? What can we look at to increasing standards or inspection or whatever?
This was heating oil?
Yes, and it was the red dye colored, all that stuff.
I mean,
Oh,
getting
ugly.
getting off of heating oil would be like top of the don't have heating oil leak into the river
Right?
Yeah.
issue. Just like, we have less gasoline spills and oil spills when we move to electric vehicles, it's just cleaner in general.
Right. My second example was also heating oil in the home that I lived at before One Church in Newmarket on Spring Street. Had, it was owned by an older couple who lived in York. Those were our landlords. It was sort of deferred maintenance for 20 years. And down in the basement, it was sort of loose brick and raw dirt in some places. And they had their heating oil tank. Just a nut or a washer was
And it
probably
dripped.
loose. Yeah, it was dripping. I filmed it at about a rate of a drop every 5 to 10 seconds. And I researched because we could have called the New Hampshire EPA. They'd come and shut things down. And so from my experience, a lot of things like this I think are happening around this town in these older
Yeah.
structures with absentee landlords or landlords who don't care, or older people who aren't just a bundle of energy doing all sorts of home projects, what have you. So how do we deal with contaminated soil and water and how to,
Don't forget, this is
fix it and prevent it.
This is an energy chapter of the master plan.
Oh,
So we
okay.
gotta-
No, this is the environment part.
Right.
We are the environment
Well, I was
committee,
gonna
so.
say, I think this is totally something that we, as a committee, the EE committee, needs to, I wanna get through our energy requirements, but like, I think the next order of business is to deal with ways, we talked about recycling and composting and clean soil, but also like water is something I brought up last time. I'm extremely unhappy with how our water tastes, or at least the water coming into my building. It's,
Yeah,
I
it's
can't drink
gross.
it. It's gross.
The water that comes out of our faucet at our house it's yucky.
Yeah.
And
And I don't know, I haven't looked at the last water report. I mean, I'm sure that it's,
Our water is actually, Newmarket's water is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
depending on the structures, plumbing,
don't know why
very
it tastes so
100
gross.
100,
Well, it tastes
150-year-old
like very
structures.
good.
No, I'm in something from the 80s, and I think you are too, right, Roberta?
oh yeah, come to think of it, house
80s
was
or
built in
maybe 90s.
'84.
Yeah,
I mean, it was completely renovated, but I'm not aware if they did any plumbing.
we can talk about, so I mean, that kind of goes into other business, so.
Okay.
So the last, and I do wanna go ahead and wrap up, but the last thing is, the last meeting, we were supposed to talk about Earth Day, which of course is now passed. But was there any discussion in March about what to do for recycling and compost and Earth Day stuff? No, so we just didn't. I would love to, again, this is more like long-term, we need to get through the energy stuff, but would love to talk about next Earth Day, having a campaign really in place for recycling, composting, proper waste management, all of that good stuff. And we talked before, and this is all leading up to next Earth Day, we talked before about possibly doing a field trip and touring our dump and potentially even other like recycling vendors. So that's kind of what I have for other business. I think all of that goes together, the soil and water, recycle, compost stuff.
Yeah, as a private citizen, I compost everything, because I garden as well. I've researched, I have a whole system. I had a compost barrel outside at the old place. Now I'm at the community garden. We take the compost there. And then between that and recycling, I have about one 15-gallon bag of trash every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
if that.
Yeah.
So I'd like I just finding out that there might be some issues with this single stream recycling, that it may not be handled as
It's-
properly as I thought.
You don't
That's
wanna know.
why
I
we
did
were
visit
talking
the-
about-
I did visit the plant, and you don't wanna know.
Yeah.
Right, that's why we were, I think Bill, maybe you were the one who was talking about like doing a field trip and touring some different
Well,
facilities.
you suggested the field trip, I kinda said, you don't wanna know.
Yeah, it really, most of what, us do-gooders, when we're trying to recycle stuff, most of that is not being recycled
Yeah, that's
for a
nationwide,
variety of reasons, mostly money, like what is profitable to recycle and what isn't.
We should, if nothing can be done, then we could at least accurately advertise what we can promise, because then people can make,
That's where I would put our emphasis, is letting
Make
people know that
purchasing decisions
plastics
based
is
on-
just no good way to use them. You gotta cut down on them as much as you can. There's no good way to recycle plastics, except for those few that you can put in your compost pile. Not-
right, the bio.
Biodegradable plastic.
But that's kind of like what we wanted to do. We wanted to, put out a public announcement or whatever, or a public
Yeah.
service thing,
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is what you can recycle, this is what you can't recycle, talk about
Gotta do that
recycling.
very nicely, because everybody feels so good about, putting all their
Yeah,
plastic with a simple
Yeah, well,
bottom in a bin.
when I read the thing and it says you can place recyclable plastics type 1 through 7 all into it, If that's not
all
true-
theoretical,
Well, you
right?
can, but
that
unfortunately.
But
it's
they're
a
not going
change
to,
on
so what
paper.
they do is yes, technically that's recyclable, but they get it and it's whatever the market is able to bear at the moment. And if there's no purchaser for that particular type of plastic, there's no point in them sorting that out. They're not going to bother with it.
And it's not a local problem, it's a national problem, unfortunately, so.
Okay, well, that's, yeah,
My-
our
my
solutions
take
start
on it is really
grassroots.
the only realistic solution is to cut down on the amount of plastic that we use.
So, I am, last term, prime sponsor of, what I have since learned, so I invented this idea in my head, found out that other people had already thought of this, and it's called extended producer responsibility. But the point is that all these makers of these plastics, whatever it is, if it's single use, if it's something that's disposable packaging, single use, the maker needs to pay for the cost on society of that plastic, because the towns have to pay to dispose of this waste. But the town isn't creating the waste. It's these companies that are making a profit that are creating this waste and externalizing that cost onto the public. And sometimes that cost includes health costs as well. So having a scale by which, you know, if Coca-Cola sells however many bottles of Coca-Cola, they have to pay, we'll call it a fee, for however many pounds of that plastic that they sell in this state, and then we use that money as a state, disseminate it to the towns for recycling, to cover it has to be enough to cover the cost of recycling. So that's an incentive for those companies to therefore move to biodegradable plastic or compostable paper or whatever it is. So that's, for me, is the gold standard, is they have to pay for the crap that they make.
That would be lovely.
But having it died last term, I plan on putting something similar in next year. But there you have it. So long term, we're talking about water, we're talking about recycling, composting. For next, I do want to do a campaign. Joe had a brilliant idea to kind of recruit the high school environmental club in town to help us make like a little cute video to educate people on what is recyclable, what isn't, and that, to Alex's point, helps people make informed decisions when they purchase things. So they're not going to purchase stuff that they know it's not going to be able to be recycled.
Yeah, and then they can make culture changes, as Bill is suggesting, more permanent containers and sacks, and where you can go and refill, you know, your right, go to the store, get rice, get whatever.
Buy in
if-
bulk and refill your
Right, yeah.
container.
Sadly, we are not enabled as a town, unless I missed something, but there were multiple attempts at enabling towns to pass restrictions on what was sold in the town in terms of plastic. So like enabling a town to ban plastic bags or ban plastic straws.
Martha's Vineyard did that.
Right, but
Bags.
this has been proposed multiple times on the state level, and we are still not enabled to ban on the, we're not even enabled to ban, there was also an attempt to enable towns to ban pesticide use, and we are not, I don't believe that passed. I might be wrong, but I don't believe that passed.
Big problem in Newmarket with banning anything in the stores is that people actually are doing their
Right.
bulk of their shopping.
It
in
would be
other
very
towns
limited.
anyway.
I mean, we have Newbury Farms, but that's
Right.
about it for grocery in
Right.
town. Anyway, it could also be useful for like cafes and stuff if you insist, but I mean, the big one in
Right,
town
that's
is already
true.
doing compostable cups, so.
Make them all do compostable.
Yeah.
cups. That's
All
a
right.
good point.
So that's kind of long-term. For now is the master plan. That's the only homework, and our next meeting is May 31st. We're, you know, a little over our targeted time, but I appreciate all your time. Anything else before we adjourn? Okay, see you May
Okay.
31st.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Copy that.
All right.